Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week, the most successful TV show that has ever been in the history of TV. We are, of course, at Talk Radio TV. We are in the studios. I've got the return this week of Russell Quirk, the man who kicked us off with Plank of the Week all those weeks ago. Russell, welcome back. You're an entrepreneur. You're a man of many parts. Most of them are working. I'm glad to see you looking so healthy and very casual today.
Thank you.
We're also joined by the very glamorous Georgie Frost, who is Times Money mentor, broadcaster, a woman who does everything from sport to money to helping people to buy things which they should be buying. I mean, you're quite a remarkable woman, and it's great to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, why don't we kick off with your first nomination?
Yeah, this has been very difficult. I think I started off with about 100 potential candidates.
I've been adding names literally
today,
about 3 to 4 by the day.
But I've managed to whittle it down to 3 that I think are contending. And I'm going to start with what potentially is the winner, if I might say, which of course is Philip Schofield.
Oh, yes.
Now,
the man of the moment.
Poor brave Philip. Poor brave Philip.
He's very brave.
After 27 years, he's decided to come out to the world insofar as him being gay, which is all fine by me, by the way, except I guess no one seems to be really talking about the fact that there's been a bit of a deception at play here. 27 years, so being gay, presumably from a young age, it's not the sort of thing I would imagine.
Well, I think he's actually said, has he not, that he was gay, he thought, on the day that he got married.
He got married, yeah. So there's, I think, it's fair to say, a slight deception there insofar as his wife and his kids. But what I take real issue with, and the reason that I'm nominating as my first plank, is the fact that he has taken the fans' shilling, really, for 27 years. He's put, in my view, his career before honesty and integrity, because he hasn't admitted his sexuality.
But isn't that a bit unfair, though? Because he was living through a time when if he had done it... I mean, I was listening to Christopher Biggins on Talk Radio, not like a few days ago, who was very funny, and he said, you know, there was a time when you couldn't come out as gay on television because it would actually harm your career.
I get that. And in the
However,
80s...
he said, the best bit was the second bit, where he said, now, if you're not gay, you've got no chance of getting on TV at all.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways, so to speak.
As it were.
So, no, I think what I don't buy is the deception, and you could say, some might say, the fraud, insofar as being a persona that you're not really. And the fact that, inexplicably, really, it's taken him 27 years to come out, and some might ask the question as to why all of a sudden it was orchestrated.
Wasn't it?
It just seems very odd to me that someone that has stayed in that closet for 27 years has all of a sudden decided on a particular day to come out. One might speculate that there's a reason for that, who knows? And if there is, the question that Holly asked, which was, has your hand been forced here? You know, have you been put in a position where you've got to make the statement today? He said no. I'm simply not sure that that's the case. And if that is the case, that his hand was forced, then it certainly isn't brave, it certainly isn't courageous. You know, really, it was nothing more than a kind of a PR mitigation exercise on the basis that it might have appeared in the Sunday Sun that weekend anyway.
Which I think is absolutely fair enough, though.
Well, the funny
I'm sorry,
thing
something
is,
personal was coming out about me. I would want to control it. I don't think you've won there. I don't think we would.
No, but Georgie, that's fine. It's fine to control it.
I think it's a very brave nomination.
No, but not to say, I'm doing this because I've had an epiphany and everyone should feel sorry for me and I'm brave and courageous and everyone fawns around him. If his hand was forced, it is not brave, it was reactionary,
but
and he was put in a corner.
As well.
It depends for the reason why. We've had enough sort of celebrities when their hands have been forced by journalists who are threatening to expose the story. So absolutely you'd want to control it by yourself.
Shouldn't their hands be forced? If you've been living a deception, if you've been living a lie, and so you're taking all this money from the BBC and ITV and so on.
As a former tabloid newspaper editor, right, there is no commerce at all or currency in outing people as gay anymore. It just isn't a story. And I said this on Friday when it happened. This is not a story. The only reason it's a story is because you want to ask the question, why is he doing it?
Yeah,
I disagree.
The fact that Philip Schofield is gay is not a story that any newspaper would have run.
I disagree.
Really?
I think it's still really interesting to people, and I don't know why.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that no newspaper would get anything out of that other than the public turning on them and saying, why are you doing this?
But surely if it was on the front page of The Sun on Sunday, they would sell more copies as a consequence.
No, I don't know if that's true.
An exclusive story?
No, because, well, the tabloid newspaper business has changed irrevocably, right? Because if you are gay and you don't wish it to be known that you are, as a newspaper, you get nothing but grief. If you out somebody.
But that's almost beside the point that I'm making. I'm making the point that he has lived a particular persona on TV to his fan base. Those fans are the ones that buy the advertisers' products, and when he's on the BBC are the ones that are paying into the licence fee and so on. And he is not the person that he has purported to be for the last 27 years. And when you're in the public eye, when you're taking the fans' shilling, I don't think you have the right to pretend to be a person that you are not.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah.
I think if he had been on telly with his wife, I think that's a different story. But he hasn't.
What's that got to do with it?
But a lot of people have said that
In the
it's
fact
not.
that you're advertising yourself, as it were, as something that you're not.
Yeah.
No, but he does do that. He advertises himself as a married man and wholesome and all the rest of it. Of course he does.
How many people knew who his wife was, or
No, no,
his
but-
family
but,
situation
right,
until
then
this
why
came
not come out as gay 23 years ago?
Why does he need to?
Because he's in the public eye and he takes the family.
Well, a lot of-
Where do you stop?
Because-
how much information should we know
back-
about you,
back-
Mike?
no,
Yeah, well, you
Tell
can
us
ask me any
everything. Come
questions
on.
you like. I'm very good at avoiding them.
You got anything you want to tell us?
No.
No, right.
Absolutely not.
But it goes back to the point that, okay, I get why in the 80s, he would have masked that reality about his sexuality, but that is not the case now. So why not come out and admit it and say it on the basis that no one really gives a toss, frankly?
Well, nobody does. That's the point.
That's the point.
But
So why not
23
say
years
it?
ago, they might have done, and that's the difference.
Well, why are we still talking about it, top of the show?
Because he's made it news by making this big, and not forgetting, on the set of This Morning, he didn't say it as a presenter, he sat there as the interviewee. He made it
Yes.
news.
He did. But of course, a lot of people as well have said that it wasn't a great surprise to them and it was a kind of an open secret anyway. But there we are. Let's move on.
Yes.
What's your first one?
I'm going to pick, and this I think is the winner, Joaquin Phoenix.
Well, I mean...
And this is very hard for me to do. When did we go so far away from the have a little cry, go up on stage, thank your mum, thank your agent,
Thank your God.
and be done with
Yes.
it, right? That was the most cringeworthy that you could imagine. Joaquin just took it to a whole nother level at the Oscars, talking about artificial insemination of cows.
I know.
And the fact that we then put that milk in our coffees. When did the Oscars become a podium for sermonising?
But it's
We're
not
not
just the
talking to
Oscars.
us.
It's not just the Oscars. This is the guy who did it to the Golden Globes. He also managed to get the Golden Globes to go vegan. He did it at the BAFTAs. I mean, it's like he's become this kind of,
But it's not
voice
just him.
of the people with no voice, and even
But
the
it's not
animals with no
just him.
voice.
It's not just him. It's just he is the face of it at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio as well. He was very famous. He used his first Oscar speech to say something very similar about climate change, and then took a private jet to wherever he was off to next.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, they're talking about re-wearing clothes. Jane Fonda talking about re-wearing jewellery. at the
Scarlett
cost of
Johansson was wearing £2.5 million worth of diamonds.
tens of thousands
Right.
of pounds.
Well, Brett, so Jane Fonda wore a dress that apparently, because she doesn't buy clothes anymore, and it might have probably more to do with the fact that she's probably got 500 dresses sitting in her LA mansion.
Yeah.
So she made a big deal of the fact that she was going to recycle her
given
dress,
them, I
which I think is Hollywood
Which
speak
she's
for wearing
recycled
the
her
same
face
thing.
enough times.
Yeah, it's
I mean, if you see check the marks at the back of the neck, it's been
It's
pulled back
Hollywood
about
speak
85
Hollywood
times.
speak for wearing the same dress twice.
Yeah.
As
Well,
I
didn't
know.
somebody say that, was it Brad Pitt that was given great kudos for wearing the same...
No, it's him. It's
Well, it was
Joaquin
Joaquin, wasn't it?
Phoenix.
For
The
wearing the
same
same tuxedo.
Exactly my point. At every
I mean,
award
all hail
ceremony,
Joaquin
well
Phoenix.
done to him.
All hail Joaquin Phoenix for wearing the same. And of course, Natalie Portman for having the names of lots of female directors
Wasn't
embroidered
lots,
into
it was
her
eight.
into her cape. Well, 8.
it was
But
8.
someone reminded me actually on Twitter yesterday that, of course, she owns a production company.
Yes.
Guess how many female director films that she has backed as a producer of that company? None.
The other great one, right, was the claim that, isn't it great to get so much diversity now in the film business because we've given Best Picture to a South Korean movie, right?
That no one's ever heard of.
No one's ever heard of it, one. But also, you go up on a stage, they're all South Korean.
Yeah.
Where's the diversity there?
Yeah.
Everyone was South Korean.
And the ultimate irony, Joaquin Phoenix, I had a little Google earlier in anticipation of our meeting today. Guess what the carbon footprint is? So if you want to talk about being a kind of an environmental crusader and a warrior, the carbon footprint of the Joker movie, just one movie in Hollywood, 5,000 tonnes of carbon that movie produced, or rather
Sounds
the
like a
making
lot.
of it. So
I don't know what any of that means, by the
Well,
way, because
it-
people say that
it's a lot.
5,000 tonnes
Yeah.
of carbon. What does that
well,
equivocate
it means
to?
crass
Well,
hypocrisy.
it means you
on
can't
the
stand
part-
up on stage and have a go at artificial insemination of cows, etc., etc. How out of touch. But as I said, I don't want to just focus on Joaquin here. This is the Oscars all together.
So you're putting the
And
whole
just,
Oscars in?
Do you know what, the whole Oscars?
Okay.
Just before the event, I thought, no, I can't put it in. I don't mind the Oscars. And then afterwards, I thought, ugh.
It is
All of the
becoming a bit of an
navel
anachronism, isn't
gazing
it?
beforehand about diversity.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Natalie Portman there with her Chanel cape with the name of women directors that had been left out. There were only 8 women. You probably couldn't fit all the men round it. I'm not saying there's not a problem. There is a problem. But don't just spend the whole time having a go about the fact that we don't have enough directors, but you do nothing about it because we have the same argument every single year.
No, I agree.
Only
So when they say it's
10%
too
of the...
white, you know, there are some fantastic black actors who have won Oscars.
Well,
there are some
Joaquin
fantastic.
Phoenix is a Native American, presumably, and Sam Mendes is of Hispanic origin, so I don't know where that comes from. I think the likes of Joaquin Phoenix and others, if they want to stand up and they want to grandstand and they want to change the world, they should do two things. One is to donate all their money to charity, all of it. Yeah. So the $4.5 million that Joaquin Phoenix got for that film, give it all away to various charities.
Yeah, but they all get around that sort of stuff by saying, you know, none of us are perfect. Well, none of us have got a house in Beverly Hills, actually, either.
And I do lots of work for charity and all that. Or the other thing, the second thing is stand for election. Just do that. And then you'll have a stage and a legitimate platform and a mandate, and then people might take you seriously, but otherwise shut up.
Well, just go up on stage, thank the poor people who turn up and pay lots of money to go and watch your movies, be grateful, like I said, have a little cry, and then go home.
Yeah. I think that's very fair. I'm going to move on to my first nomination, which is up in Scotland. A man by the name of Derek Mackay. He's the Scottish Finance Minister up in the Scottish Parliament for the SNP, Scottish National Party, who on the day that he was due to deliver the Scottish budget for 2020, unfortunately found himself having to step down from his job because the Scottish Sun had got hold of 270 text messages that he had sent to a 16-year-old boy, many of which were, at the very least, slightly suggestive. He was accused of grooming. You know what the funny thing is the SNP have not actually released his resignation letter because he hasn't written one. Apparently he resigned verbally. Right. This is how the SNP operates. There's no letter from Nicola Sturgeon to him saying, thank you very much, it's terribly unfortunate that your career was crashed to the ground on this particular occasion. We hope to see you back in government sometime soon. They're obviously trying to just forget about it altogether.
And of course this is in the wake of the Alex Salmond trial, which is about to start. And I suppose we should caveat this, that he's going to trial and he's innocent until proven guilty.
Of course he is.
Denies all the allegations.
Absolutely.
And so on.
But I mean, this guy, what a complete plank. I mean, that's going to be the worst and the most ridiculous way to lose your job.
And on the day of the budget.
On the day of the budget. I mean, because not only does he have to step aside, but some other poor bozo has to stand up and do the speech.
They had to read his speech.
And of course, nobody's heard of whoever that was. I don't know who it is, but I think old Derek has to be on the planks list. He's got to make the top five.
And arguably, from my point of view, maybe the entire SNP, actually.
Let's have your number two.
So my number two is a kind of collective, but there's lots of individual names in it. So mine is the entire Labour leadership candidacy. I've had to actually write them down, so I don't think even I could commit all of this to memory. So first of all, Rebecca Wrong-Daly, as I like to call her, because she is Wrong-Daly. She's the person that has said this week that she supports strikes unconditionally. So no matter what, she will support the unions, doesn't matter what it is. Right. It could be, you know, the tea's cold or someone's parked in the union leader's car parking space. That's it, everybody out, like the 70s. Do you remember that? Rag trade, do you remember that?
I actually tweeted at her saying, well, how about a tax strike? Maybe we just won't pay any tax and then you won't get paid. Because that's the only place you get your money from.
Indeed. She also said about 24 hours after the strike reference that all emails by employees out of hours, so every single email that you would otherwise send maybe at 5 to 9 in the morning or at 6:30 in the evening when you've had a busy day, maybe you've had a couple of hours off, maybe you picked up the kids and decided to catch up with your work in the evening.
Well, maybe you're a freelancer that doesn't work traditional 9 to 5.
But she says no, but that's absolutely forbidden in her book, that you should not be allowed to email
but this is so
work
typical,
out of the 9 to 5.
You make a great point, Georgie, because so many people now work different hours. I mean, people don't work 9 to 5. What is she? It's some kind of dinosaur? You know, if you get up early to do something on the radio, or you get up early to do Sky or something like that, you know, you might go back to bed in the afternoon. You might not then start working again until 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but I'm afraid she's not the only one. So Lisa Nandy, who's just been outed yesterday, I think, for claiming £4,000 in first-class rail travel.
Yes.
Plank. Emily Thornbury, there's a bit of a list here. So
she's still on the list. I didn't know she was.
Yeah, she's just about to. She's hanging on by her posh fingernails. Right. So she's the one that thinks all Leave voters are thick, although denies saying that, of course. She's also the one that lounges about, as we saw yesterday on Twitter, on trains.
We got into a bit of a debate about this. I had sympathy because she had high heels on.
So that is plankish, like
absolutely.
Richard Bergen.
Richard Bergen's had a few recently, isn't he?
He doesn't escape the list. He also said yesterday on Twitter, Richard Bergen, that socialism is vindicated because Sinn Féin did very, very well in the Irish election yesterday, until some of us, including me, reminded him that Sinn Féin did well, but they only got 24% of the vote, which is not a win.
No.
And if you got, as the Labour Party pretty much did in the last election here, 24% of the vote, you come a distant second. So 24% of the vote, vindicating socialism, is not a thing.
The Irish voting system seems bizarre in itself, doesn't it?
And
that's
then,
another story altogether.
I'm almost out
enough on the list here.
I'm almost out of breath here. Keir Starmer. Again this week for priming 8-year-olds with questions that were incredibly sophisticated around homelessness and so on, and giving those 8-year-olds apparently the impression that before 2010, before the Conservative government and when it was a Labour government, there was no such thing as homelessness whatsoever.
Yes.
What a bunch of planks.
I know.
All of them.
Incredible.
So
Absolutely incredible.
they go in.
What's your number 2, Georgie?
Terry Christian.
Oh, yes.
Who he, you might say,
Yes.
if you are
Who
under
did he
the
used
age
to be, even?
of 40. Every article you read about him says the entertainer who was on The Word in the 90s,
Yeah, right.
which I think says quite
Says
a
it all.
lot.
That was the last century.
Yeah, I mean, I barely remember that. But anyway, that's not why I'm here to criticise his employment statistics. But IKEA in Coventry.
Yes.
He took to Twitter to blame the fact that IKEA had made the decision to close their store in Coventry on Brexit.
Yeah.
Now, he's very famously anti anyone
I
who
don't
voted
understand
Brexit.
why he's so vitriolic about Brexiteers. I don't know why he's adopted this kind of mad...
Because it gets him on TV again?
Well, I suppose, but you don't get paid much for doing that. I can say that as somebody who has not been paid very much to do exactly that, you know?
Well, either way...
Can't make a living out of it.
Is he just desperately trying to stay or become, rather, relevant?
Do you know what?
He looks about 110, by the way.
I'm going
as
to
well.
give it to him and say he's 59, I think, genuinely believes what he says.
Does he?
He genuinely wants everybody who voted to leave to really suffer,
Yeah.
and he'll really look forward to buying the big issue off every single one of those people who voted to leave.
He should have been on this
absolutely
list
fine.
before.
But look, let's focus on the economics, shall we?
Yes.
I know he doesn't probably is that interested in the
don't think
economics
he's
of
that good at
IKEA.
maths.
But this store opened in 2007 and it's been making a loss since 2007.
Because
exactly.
it's a different type of store, isn't it?
It's a different type
7
of store.
stories.
We are shopping differently now. Everybody's going online. We're going to big retail
Yeah.
parks. It's just not working at the moment. So they decided to close it. It's got nothing to do with Brexit. And as someone said on Twitter, are we going to blame coronavirus on Brexit as well?
And should we
Probably
balance-
Terry Christian, well, that'll be next
Well,
week.
yeah.
He probably will, but we should also balance it against all the announcements, and there's been a big one in the last 24 hours insofar as the companies that are investing in Britain as a consequence of
Yes.
a post-Brexit environment, namely Amazon. Amazon are opening one of their biggest distribution centres in the world in Britain, as announced yesterday. Car manufacturers reinvesting back into Britain. So look, I'm sorry, what's the opposite of one summer doth not a swallow make?
Well,
one store closure does not a Brexit
But it's
disaster
not.
This
They
may
didn't
come
even
as,
say in their books it had anything to do with Brexit.
No.
It was difficult
Also,
trading
IKEA,
times.
believe it or not, and you may know this because you may have watched the same TV show that I did, is the 10th biggest producer of food in the world, right? And they sell 1 billion meatballs every single year, right? They're not going to be too bothered about losing one shop in Coventry, are they?
Well, they're doing it for a reason, probably because it's unsustainable
Yeah.
at the moment.
Right.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's one store of hundreds, and the others aren't closing.
No.
All good.
And especially all the ones in Britain. I mean, if they suddenly went, right, we're pulling out of Britain, you might go, oh, okay, maybe it's something to do with the European Union. It isn't.
But it's not even about that. It's
No.
the idea that it doesn't make any sense to have that amount of space in that area when they're making a loss.
Yes.
They're going online. Trust me, this will not be an issue for
No.
IKEA. They're using this as a way to make money.
Yes.
To make a more sustainable business, but it's not to do with Brexit.
Of course not. It's got
I
nothing
wish
to do with
Terry
Brexit
Christian would
whatsoever.
just disappear up his own Remainer tent or something. I'm not sure what I could say. Okay, my second one, you love this one, right? It's got to be Prince Harry. Prince Harry.
Again?
Because, here's a guy that was supposed to be staying out of the limelight because, he can't take all the publicity about him, First thing, he goes over to Canada, where apparently they've been hiding out some £14 million mansion that Meghan has borrowed from a friend, But they've been living a normal life, She's been making baby food for Archie and living just like an ordinary couple until
What, like a mother would?
until the corporate jet turns up, courtesy of JP Morgan.
Yeah.
They decide to pay Prince Harry. Now, the estimate is anything from £500,000 to £1 million for him and Meghan to fly from Vancouver to Florida in the JP Morgan private jet to speak
About climate change?
at a
No.
dinner. No, for him to speak about how he's been in therapy for 7 years and that he doesn't want his children to grow up like he grew up because it was so awful because his mother was killed in a car crash. Now, some people would say that is actually making money out of the legacy and the death of a princess, which is what he's doing. Now, if he was doing it for free and because he wanted people to have mental health awareness and all of that, that's one thing. If he was doing it as part of a royal trip, that's another thing. This is purely and simply a commercial operation now. And he's getting paid money because of who he is and because of what he's got to say. And I think it's absolutely wrong and complete
I
plank.
agree, but this is off the back of renouncing their royalty and but yet still leveraging that when it comes to taking money. I mean, what you should have said to him is, well, I'm not a royal anymore, so I'll give you a bit of a discount on that $400,000. Maybe it's $50,000 because I'm no longer His Royal Highness.
I
Prince
have
Harry.
more of an issue, with that, in the fact that they left the limelight than I do
Can't have it
about
both ways.
giving a speech which is quite an important speech to make.
Well, but why is he making it to JP Morgan then? Why isn't he doing it on his Instagram channel so that all of his fans can see it for free?
Because presumably it will get a bigger audience. I'm still a bit annoyed. I gave
Well, no,
a
it
speech
won't.
once
No,
to
no, it was a
JP Morgan.
No, it was a private
They paid
event.
me $0, and it was all about helping people save and all that sort
Well,
of thing. So it was for a good reason.
You should have told him that you knew Prince Harry.
I know.
And they might have given you some dosh
What
for
it could have been, what it could have been. So they still owe me.
They
by
also
the
had
way.
dinner with what's her name? J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, and her husband.
Yeah.
And Meghan says that but by the way, these are the same people who say that they want to try and work towards becoming financially independent. Right? He's got 30 million quid. This guy. How can he not be financially independent? He doesn't need to work. He doesn't need to sell himself.
And he's not even paying for his own security.
He doesn't need to sell himself to JP Morgan for $1 million.
Well, he's not. But if they come and knock,
No,
then
it's not bloody
he's
Engelbert
thinking,
Humperdinck,
well, it's
is
for
he?
a good cause.
Well, it's not for a good cause. It's for his pocket, though.
I just think the whole thing's a real shame because, I mean, we talked about breath of fresh air when they came in, but they had such an opportunity to do good. Do you know, I would less rather that they're being paid by JP Morgan to give speeches than I would they actually be paid by us, the taxpayer, to do good work in the community,
I'm afraid it's like
to
lots
use
of-
their power and their influence that way.
like
They're not
lots-
doing good works. They're flying on a private jet
Well, they're
to
not
go to a
now.
function. They're speaking for money, and then they're flying out on the private jet to go back home and make baby food.
But it's like lots of people in the limelight, they are doing good work, but they're doing good work, I'm afraid, just for themselves.
Good work for the money as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
doing
but they
good
left
work.
that. That's my point,
That's
is
exactly
that when they left
It's
the
not
royal
philanthropic,
family,
is
they
it?
left that
It's always going to be about them. Of
for
course
the
it is.
quiet life. And this is
And the
nowhere
rules get
near.
bent and manipulated, however which way, just to favour themselves and their pockets.
Yeah. Who's your number 3?
Our friend Sadiq Khan, who I have to be honest, I don't have a lot of time for.
He doesn't have a lot of time for us either. He refuses to come on my show.
But on the basis
What have you done
that
now?
I track these things as a bit of a political geek, I'm afraid, and I keep revisiting what Sadiq Khan promised us all in 2015-16 in his election. So he promised that he'd get crime down. It's actually increased 50%. This is violent crime.
Right.
Violent crime has increased by 50% in the last 5 years. Violent crime is up 10% year on year, just on last year alone. We had 146 stabbing deaths last year, which is an all-time high. Crossrail, of course, has been delayed. No one seems to know when that's going to appear. It's over budget. It's quite ridiculous, an embarrassment, frankly. And from a housing point of view, and obviously I have a property background, I was really heartened when I heard Sadiq Khan back in 2016 saying that, look, I'm going to build 65,000 houses a year. And I thought, great, that sounds fantastic.
How many has he built?
And half of them are going to be affordable. So it's 32,500 going to be affordable. He's achieved 18% of that, 18%.
Right.
And I've actually challenged him a number of times. And basically what he says is, well, look, it takes time. It's the government's fault. It's Brexit's fault.
That's what he says about everything.
It's everybody's fault apart from his own.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't all bad enough in terms of him having, I think, failed in terms of his promises, and I'm getting pretty cheesed off with politicians making promises and not just falling short with them, but just basically ignoring the fact that
Because
they've
they
even
must
said,
know when they make them. There's no chance
well,
of
it's
it
just
ever coming
pie
true, right?
Pie in the sky. And look, when it comes to the ballot box, which it will do, as I say, in 83 odd days' time, I sincerely hope that people hold Sadiq and other politicians to account insofar as what he said he was going to do 4 years ago and what he has not done, particularly on crime, housing and transport, which I think are 3 very important things.
Yeah.
But then what really
Here's the icing on the cake,
made
right?
my blood boil yesterday was the fact that Sadiq Khan has orchestrated a competition, which is called Diversity in Advertising, which is to promote various businesses to put pictures of naked ethnic people on the tube, and that a raft of people from business and from the GLA, from City Hall, have then judged who the winner is. It's called Diversity in Advertising, and he has given away £500,000 of taxpayers' money as a prize to the company that wins in advertising. So rather
That's
than
ridiculous.
rather than
Why can't they give him
focusing-
20 grand?
yeah,
Why do they need half a million?
And this is the man, I have to say, and he might dispute this, that had the opportunity to put another 1,000 police on the streets of London and instead increased his PR budget. So he's failed on housing, he's failed on Crossrail, he's failed on crime, and all he seems to want to do is to focus on PR and silly competitions at the taxpayers' expense. What a plank.
Absolutely ridiculous. Totally ludicrous. They look quite naked. They do look quite naked, but they're sort of tattooed.
And he talks about celebrating their skin tone and curves.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
It's a
press release.
Dove advert or
That was the
something.
press release from
It does look
GLA.
a bit like it could be a Dove advert, except not quite as tastefully done.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Am I going to see this on the tube then, when I come in the morning? This is not going to be good for me, I'll tell you that. Who's your final nomination?
Well, it sort of links, actually. You're talking about Crossrail there. I'm going to go for Boris Johnson. I understand the idea of having institutions and companies is quite a difficult one, so I try and nail it down. But we could go to Lord Adonis on this one.
We could.
Because it's
He's been on
basically
the list before.
anyone linked to HS2.
Yes.
In the affirmative, as in they want it to go ahead. And Boris Johnson has decided that after 8,000 years and a squadrillion pounds, we are still going to plough ahead with something that is not going to be ready until we're all pensioners.
And he had the opportunity to stop it, didn't he? He could have said, you know, that's it, we're not doing any more. I don't care how many billions we've spent already, there's no more. There's no more money.
But he can't, can he?
No,
he can't not do it because of his pledge and his hat tip to the Northern powerhouse. That red wall, the Labour wall that's come down as a consequence of the last election. Boris now has to feign. He has to ensure that those northern constituencies.
Precisely. This is my point. I mean, yes, you might argue
It's
that,
politics.
but I would argue. Actually, who are the companies? Who are the people that he's trying to please here? Or is this a bit of sort of Macbeth, and I'm paraphrasing here, that I've waded in blood so deep that going backwards tedious has got, I may not bother. Like, we've gone so far.
Listen, the last guy that quoted Shakespeare got sacked, so just be careful. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
True.
But that was a madly bad paraphrase, so it's fine.
That's good, yeah.
But how much money? I mean, what did they suggest this would be? About 50
When
billion?
it started,
Now we're over 110
when it started, believe it or
billion.
not, it was at 3.
I mean,
it literally is on a, you know, they used to call it the fuel accelerator, didn't they? This is like, you know, gone completely in reverse. This
what is wrong with this country and infrastructure projects?
I mean, that's 3/4 of the National Health Service budget.
It's incredible. I think building Wembley cost the same amount as the Germans built 4 stadium and renovated 5 for the World Cup.
The Scottish Parliament started out with a budget of 40 million. And in the end, it was 410.
Yeah, it'll
so
take
10
us,
times.
but it's going to take us 20 years to build
gonna
it, and the Chinese can build a hospital in 10 days.
Yeah.
But what is the point as well?
We
what
don't
is
need
the
it.
point? It's a vanity project.
The only people that will tell you it's a good idea are people with a vested interest, are people who are part of the kind of, you know, the lobbying organisations and the big companies who say, oh, but we've employed 9,000 people already. Well, what the hell are they doing? You haven't laid any track yet.
And Conservative MPs in northern constituencies.
Well, not really, because a lot of the
surely.
60 Conservative MPs who are against it, right, and they may in fact cause Boris a problem on this, because, you know, if the SNP vote against it and 60 Tories vote against it, you know, he could have a problem. But I think the other reality here is that we know that it won't be finished in 2040 and it won't be 106 billion. It'll probably be double that.
Exactly.
And by the time we get to that time, as you say, we'll all be pensioners, but not only that, there'll probably be much better technology. Nobody will be going by train anywhere.
Precisely. For 32 minutes off a trip to Birmingham or something, we'll be flying there.
Yeah.
I mean, let's focus on the things.
You'll be an Uber drone or something, you know.
Well, exactly.
You'll be flying up in a
the
little,
technology
you know.
will be so behind the times. And it's almost like Boris Johnson on the daily saying, yes, I'm going to go ahead with it. Went, OK, I'm going to perform a little magic trick. Here's 5 billion for buses.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of been Boris.
I know.
But Boris in the last few days has gone all kind of Victorian-esque,
His
hasn't he?
speech was mad. But he's talking about, you know, the Victorian splendour of Bristol
he wants to
Temple Mead
emulate
Station.
Queen Victoria almost in terms of all these.
Well, it's all right.
I mean,
all these big infrastructure.
Well, I mean, I
projects.
used to go to Bristol Temple Mead Station a lot.
Yeah, the Bristol Union.
I mean, as soon as you come out of Bristol Temple Mead Station, that's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Because then you hit that horrible sort of retail park, which looks disgusting, right? And I mean, you know, he's talking about tulips growing like in the fields of Amsterdam. I mean, he's starting to get a bit carried away with his own PR.
It's a big dollop of politics for sure, but he also wants to seriously, he wants to leave infrastructure levy, again, as you say, like the Victorians, a bit like this bridge that he is considering, apparently, between Northern Ireland and Scotland. I mean, wow.
But they're never going to build that either.
No.
I mean, you know, but they can now talk about it for a long time. Somebody actually said...
10 years, massively over budget.
Well, one of the reasons they can't actually do it is that apparently in the piece of seabed that they want to pile these pylons in, it's apparently full of World War II munitions which were dumped there.
Don't let a few.
Listen, I'm very much in favour of big infrastructure projects if we could do them.
Yeah.
You know, if you could take
we can't do them in the better times.
If you could take a car across from Wales to Ireland, I'd be happy to build a bridge, but we can't do it. We shouldn't bother.
This is the way the game's
My
evolved.
final plank of the week is actually, I mean, I had a lot of trouble with this one because it came down in the end to 2 anonymous individuals. The first one being a guy who was found surfing on the day of Storm Ciara in Hastings, which is a pretty dangerous place at the best of times, right? Because the sea comes in at a very funny angle from the cliffs there. He then forces an RNLI boat to come out and find him because the sea is, I don't know if you've seen the video, but the sea is incredibly angry, coming over his head. They give up, but they were putting themselves at risk of life just to try and get him. He then lost his surfboard altogether and was kind of floating about. Apparently was washed up in Rye, which is about 30 miles away. So, I mean, he must have had quite a journey, you know, getting from one side of Sussex round to the other. He practically ended up in Dover. You know, but what a complete idiot.
Yeah. And the serious side of that is the people that you put in danger.
Well, the people that you put in danger, and also the cost. We're already hearing that the RNLI doesn't have as much money as it should have.
Can they bill him, I wonder?
Well, I think they should be able to bill people if they're that stupid. I mean, I was in Canberra Sands on the Saturday, the day before, when it was actually relatively, calm. And there were a couple of people out surfing and stuff, and it was fine because they knew what they were doing, and lots of people do kite surfing and all that. But this guy, I mean, what on earth was he thinking? I mean, it's all very well. If you're that mad about surfing, move to California or move to Hawaii or something.
He should be built. Absolutely, should be built.
And the second guy, who I had to choose between, was David Cameron's bodyguard. You know, this is the guy who gets on a British Airways plane with a Glock pistol, fully loaded, which surprised me actually, because I thought they'd make him take the bullets out. Everybody made fun of me when I said, well, what would be the point of a bodyguard without any bullets? Well, because if you fire the gun on the plane, everybody's going to die.
Yeah.
You know, that's not really a good idea. But this guy decides not only that, but he leaves the loaded gun in the toilet.
With David Cameron's passport.
With David Cameron's passport.
Yeah.
Well, everyone says, well, he must have taken it out.
I mean, a baby, though, was it, or a child? I mean, David Cameron.
Which he's been responsible for.
He is a bit careless with things.
Did leave his child in a pub once.
That's easily done, though.
It's not a loaded 9mm Glock 17, though, is it?
Not
On a plane?
And I think you'd have to say, I don't really care to think about the circumstances under which he had to remove the gun and take his trousers down and do whatever he was doing. However, we've all got phones. If you're in a toilet, you put the phone down. If it's not in your pocket, you pick the phone up again. You don't leave it there. Yeah. This is a gun, right? It's not a phone. It's not, a credit card. It's not a wallet. It's a bloody great gun. It's quite big, heavy things.
And he's a professional police officer that's gone through, presumably, years of training and testing and so on. You would imagine, maybe there isn't a training course for don't leave your gun in a toilet.
Yeah, you would think there would be. But in the end, I went for the surfer, just because I thought, knowing this guy's luck, the old protection officer, he'll probably do that again. The surfer probably won't ever happen again, because we won't have another storm like that for quite a long time. Yeah. So my third man is the surfer.
A worthy one, I think.
Yeah,
I think so. So now, so we're left with the three. So your three are Joaquin Phoenix, Boris Johnson,
and Terry Christian.
Now, would you like to pick one of those?
I guess Boris then.
It's got to be Boris, isn't it?
I
think Boris is a good one. It's a good one. Now, do you want to pick his best three? So you've got the entire Labour Party.
Philip Schofield, the entire Labour leadership candidacy. Which I've been cheeky there, rather than it being 4 or 5 people.
I think it's difficult to pick on one of them.
I'm going to go for Sadiq Khan.
Okay, I'm quite.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'm happy
with that.
Okay. So we've now got Sadiq Khan and Boris Johnson.
There's a theme there.
Now I don't know which one of you wants to pick my best one.
I don't know what you think.
Well, I know exactly what I think.
I'm quite tempted to go for the Surfer Man.
Me too. That's who I would choose.
You like the Surfer Man?
Yeah.
I like the Surfer Man because I think he represents more than just him. He represents every plank that's ever gone out and done something like that.
If you had to describe Plank of the Week in an image,
it
would be
the
that.
one
because also, you're right, I like that because it's very timely. And that's the thing, because everyone's thinking about that.
Him on his surfboard, waves above him.
All right. So now we go on to the final stage of the Plank of the Week process, which is that we now have three. So we have Boris Johnson, we have Sadiq Khan, and we have the Surfer Man. So we need to remove one of those.
Do we think that Boris is likely to reappear time and time again?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Well, if we exclude Boris now, he'll probably be here next week.
I mean, don't worry. Whoever is excluded is still coming at number 3, so they're still quite high up on the list.
But won't be a surfer again. Sadiq Khan may or may not reappear after the London Mayor elections, but I don't know. But I would say personally that we should maybe bin Boris on the basis that he's bound to appear again several times.
Okay, so it's between Sadiq Khan and the surfer. So I'm going to vote for Sadiq Khan.
Okay.
By show of hands.
I'm going to have to because he's mine. Sorry to be biased and political. But
and are you going to vote for the surfer?
I'll go for the surfer just to be different, actually. Okay. Just because of what you said about the fact that it represents what is a plank.
Yeah.
Plankism. I'm confident Sadiq will reappear. And also I'm confident that it's timeless, Sadiq. He's the gift that keeps
I'm rather hoping
taking.
it's time limited, actually. But anyway,
lots of people are.
Well, at least we've got another 84 days. Did you say?
We have, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's bound to get in again, isn't he? He's bound to do something.
And actually,
stupid.
we could have said this last week, or the week before, or the week before. But is this?
Well, no,
we're not going to get that storm again, are we?
The tube ad.
Are you asking for a second vote here?
No,
because Sadiq Khan at the moment is number 1 plank of the week.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. I'm happy to take, but I'm just explaining why I would go for the.
So you're going to go for the people's second referendum?
A close second.
Yeah.
A close second.
Yeah.
We'd
go again.
the Surfer Man.
Until I get the result I want. Can we keep going? No?
I watched one of my favourite films. Am I allowed?
Did you vote Remain?
I did actually.
Yeah.
That's a shock.
Why would you say that?
Can I review my blank of the week?
Do you want to make it me now? Sorry.
Mike,
Listen, it
yeah.
was a fantastic plank of the week, I think. I think we outdid ourselves. Thank you so much. You were a tremendous guest, Georgie.
Pleasure as always.
Russell Quirk. He's the first person who's done 2 of these, by the way. That's how, in such high esteem we hold him on guiding planks through the course of the week. So it's Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, plank of the week. We'll see you next week for some more plankery.